Okay, Lynn, I'm really sick of you asking about if anything electronic in my house can run Doom. Would you find it funny if I kept asking if your video game consoles had, I don't know, Prime Video or something? My good bitch. We can go deeper. When it comes to entertainment-focused technology for consumer use, manufacturers have been wanting to pack as much diverse functionality into their devices as possible, and for good reason. Having a piece of tech solely focused on one kind of function like an audio player, video display, gaming console, it certainly means a higher chance of it doing that thing pretty damn well, but it's obviously way more efficient to bundle more into it. That's why the PlayStation 1 had audio CD support, why modern TVs utilize their own operating systems complete with a bunch of built-in and downloadable apps. Actually, never mind on that one, they just make smart TVs to fuck over their consumers. To make gaming consoles a softer sell for more casual customers, more general software is included right alongside regular games, and that's what I'll be talking about here. Also, if you feel like I left out any notable apps from the Wii, Wii U, or DS by the end of this video, you may want to check out a previous video of mine where I talk about fan revivals of Nintendo's online services. It's likely I may have already covered the services you'd be thinking about in that one. A lot of general software before the 5th generation of consoles, if they weren't being done on handhelds, like with the Game Boy camera, printer, sewing machine tool, they were usually just concepts that didn't become full products, such as with Shigeru Miyamoto's Avatar Creation Tech demo on the Famicom. An example of this is on the SNES with the Tran Direct Home Banking System, which, while the SNES was indeed before the 5th generation, this was interestingly planned for release around 1998, a year before the SNES's end of production in North America. As the title says, this was a cartridge made to access banking services such as making payments and viewing statements, but its promotional video also pushed how it could be used for reading and sending emails, which honestly would have been a pretty big benefit for those who didn't own a PC back then. The promo video also boasted how the cartridge would update when making its connection to bank servers, connecting through a phone line that weirdly isn't clarified where it would connect, as the cartridge didn't seem to have any connection ports on it besides the standard cartridge port connecting to the console itself like, you know, any other cart. Keyboard input would have been done with a special controller that likely would have been packaged with the cartridge, and I honestly think it would be cool just to own the controller. Come on, I love random ass peripherals like this. And for anyone who's curious, it also isn't clarified if the connection port is instead on the keyboard controller. This was without a doubt a very experimental effort. But to Tran Direct's credit, not only were they proud of having Nintendo of America's backing as shown in the promo video, but they actually had experience making home banking software on a game console already, specifically with the Amiga CD32. And honestly, attempting stuff like online updates, accessing email, and utilizing banking services on a console that not many people, if any, would expect to be possible on, it's very impressive. I wouldn't say it's ahead of its time, but definitely ahead of its generation. Tran Direct had the experience and support to back up their reason for developing this, but regardless, the product never made it to market. At least I didn't think it made it. YouTuber Chadtronic made a reaction video to the promo video back in the day, and it does show the cartridge, but it's likely just a random SNES cart with a sticker on it rather than a real prototype. Jumping forward a console generation, but staying in around the same time frame, Japan had a unique online service for the Nintendo 64's disk drive add-on known as RANnet. This would be conceptualized after Nintendo ended their work on the Satellaview service for the SNES, which was much more gaming focused, hence why I haven't gone into much detail about it here. I'm sure the existence of the standard N64 title Murata Shogi 64 was also a factor for why Nintendo was interested in having a general online service, as the game has a modem port on the cartridge so players can have online matches with each other. RANnet would last for around a very brief 2 years, from the beginning of the December 1999 to February 28, 2001. The RANnet disk was bundled with the disk drive and actually featured a full internet browser which would let players access standard internet features such as email and reading newsletters, without any need for implementation for those features having to be manually baked into the software. The 64 disk drive also had 2 games with online features built around RANnet, that being Mario Artist Communication Kit and Japan Pro Golf Tour 64. So, did RANnet provide features so impressive that having a 2-year lifespan was that much of a tragedy? Not really. Though if you do want to see more about what the service was like, there is a fan continuation out there known as RANnet Plus. On the note of internet browsers, the Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, and PS2 all had dedicated software built off the Planet Web interface, made specifically to run on gaming consoles of that time. Hell, a lot of the Gamecube's Japanese demo discs used the Planet Web interface to run the HTML files for the demo disc UI and built-in game catalog, which kind of implies the Gamecube was also planned to have a Planet Web-based browsing software at one point. The Dreamcast even had support for another general internet-based service known as WebTV, which allowed for internet functions such as emails, chat rooms, and sites that were contained within WebTV servers. But as we move into the consoles of the 2000s, we really get to see more general software outside of simple internet browsers. In fact, there was even a full computer operating system on a console in the form of Linux on the PlayStation 2. It was basically a specialized Linux distribution made for the PS2 that you'd install onto the included hard drive, and it basically functioned as a standard PC with Linux on it. Linux support would continue onto the PS3 with the other OS environment, which allowed users to load up Linux, FreeBSD, and other compatible OSs, though Sony would remove this feature in 2010, causing soft modding exploits to be used a lot more in response, which, due to Sony suing a member of exploit group Failoverflow over this, would be the inciting incident to the whole saga that was the PlayStation Network cyber attack of 2011. Back on topic though, you know what else released on the PS2? Netflix. Albeit only in Brazil because of larger import taxes causing the majority of users to stay on previous gen systems. But on that note, streaming services. When Netflix started the video streaming part of their business, Microsoft made a deal with them to make Netflix streaming exclusive to the Xbox 360. Well, kinda, as Netflix still could be used on over 7th gen consoles just through a disc as a workaround for the exclusivity deal the company made with Microsoft. Later on in 2010, the discs wouldn't be necessary for accessing Netflix, save for the previously mentioned Brazilian PS2 version. I do think the 360 version of Netflix is pretty cool for having a feature where you can host online watch parties with people on your Xbox Live friend list, complete with a feeder environment with each participant's Xbox Live avatar being shown. Nintendo even made a companion app for the streaming services available on Wii U with Nintendo TV, which allowed users to find which movies and series were available on Netflix, Hulu, or their cable network, but alongside that let them share reactions to moments on playing shows through Miiverse. This lasted for only 3 years, shutting down in August of 2015, but I was surprised to find that there are multiple projects for fan continuations of the service, one of them also planning on providing a revival for the lesser-known Wii U counterpart to the Wii's The Mycon service app. And while we're on the topic of the Wii U, I suppose I can also mention Wii Karaoke U. I mean, karaoke can be kinda considered general software since it's usually its own separate thing from video gaming. Wii Karaoke U released in December 2012 in Japan and October 2013 in Europe, and used the song library from the Joy Sound karaoke service. Now, of course, I'm not a specific karaoke nerd myself, but from what I've seen, this seems like a pretty viable game to use for anyone who's into karaoke. I especially like how you can use either the gamepad or a generic USB mic for singing. What I find especially funny is that explicit lyrics in the songs provided aren't censored, and since you have the visual of your me on a stage during a song, you have probably the only instance of me swearing. Also, does the gamepad TV remote feature count? Probably not, but I still want to say that this is honestly the best TV remote I've ever used. Like, I don't know if this uses CEC technology or what, but this honestly works really well if you're like me and often lose track of remotes in your home. And the physical gamepad buttons even work for menu control. That's really cool. Lastly, I'd like to talk about a group of apps on the PlayStation 3, the first of which being Life with PlayStation. This was a service that grouped together a suite of features classified as their own channels, very obviously trying to take the inspiration from the Wii's casual-focused pre-installed software. You had the live channel, basically providing news and forecast feeds. United Village gave insight on culture, primarily on small rural communities around the world. The World Heritage channel displayed notable real-world locations, linking to their Wikipedia articles. And the PlayStation Network Game Trailers channel is pretty much what it says on the tin. The channel I find the most interesting in Life with PlayStation is its folding at home client. For those who don't know, protein folding clients basically run simulations of protein cells folding into different structures, with ideal structures being useful for fending off real-world diseases, and sends the info of the simulations to the servers of medical researchers. And with the PS3 specs being heavily boasted by Sony at launch, a folding client was a great fit for the console, as it had plenty of power to go around for efficiently running folding simulations. You simply run the client on your PS3 when you're not using it for anything else, and you're helping with research towards potentially saving real-world lives, which I honestly find really amazing. The Life with PlayStation service ended in the start of November of 2012, and no fan revivals seem to exist at the time of writing, unfortunately. Though Life with PlayStation's channel features are pretty obsolete nowadays, I honestly think the service was really cool regardless, especially the folding at home client. Next up is Mainichi Isho and its successor Weekly Toro Station. These were part of the Dokodemo Isho series, which is pretty infamous for being ridiculously inaccessible outside of Japan, as the only game to have an English translation that isn't live service based was Toro Let's Party, specifically in the Korean version, and the quality of the translation is that. The Toro Station show on the service itself was hosted by Toro, who was pretty much the mascot of the Dokodemo Isho series at this point, and Kuro, who's pretty much a deuteragonist to Toro as he makes his first appearance as a character in this service. The show covers a mix of both PlayStation brand related things as well as more general topics, such as in the first episode where to commemorate the PS3's launch, the two mentioned film series that begin screening their third entries in theaters on the same day. The show would also have a level of interactivity for the player, such as with quizzes and being given the option to view store pages for mentioned games. The service would end in 2009, but it would be replaced with Weekly Toro Station, technically a separate service but with the same concept. According to the Dokodemo Isho wiki, the original Toro Station episodes would still be available to view on Weekly Toro Station, but the series would receive new episodes as well, this time on a weekly schedule rather than daily. Weekly Toro Station would last until September of 2013, and in terms of archiving episodes from the services, it can be tough since not only would each episode would have to be recovered like with other lost media in general, but the semi-interactivity in each episode does end up making archiving them take more work than just recording in one take, as in order for a complete archival of an episode, you need to record stuff like correct and incorrect answer dialogue for quiz questions. Overall, Mainichi Isho and Weekly Toro Station seemed like pretty cool news services for PlayStation fans that could experience the service. Lastly, I'd like to talk about PlayStation Home. Released in December 2008, this came out right as social MMO games in general like Club Penguin and Animal Jam were booming in popularity, though PS Home seemed like it was meant more as a competitor to more general metaverse like games like Second Life, with its more realistic presentation and higher emphasis on user-generated content. In a way, it's also very comparable to Miiverse, as its community was made up of users of the console it was solely developed for. Not only could players chat and simply hang out, but they could also have other people join them to play private online sessions in other PS3 games, an idea loosely based off early concepts of the service being in the form of a scrapped multiplayer lobby system in the PS2 game The Getaway Black Monday. Despite being only limited to being on the PS3, the service had a very solid user base for the majority of its life, and it was actually pretty commercially viable, but the service ended at the end of March 2015 regardless. There are a few fan revivals out there, though the only one with a solid user base, Destination Home, is unfortunately still in closed beta. The sad thing is, I did manage to get an open revival working on an emulator before, but I haven't been able to now. I just get this error when it attempts to connect. To recount what playing the service for the revival was like, you could download different public areas so you could enter them. Of course, a lot of them were general areas like social hubs, a theater, event venues, and arcade, but there were also areas based around partnered brands, and some were even based off specific properties like Dokadama Isho. It was overall pretty fun simply walking around these places myself. All of these general services, at least in my opinion, are really cool to look back on due to how interesting the methods of implementing them on gaming consoles were, especially stuff like the SNES banking system, Linux for PS2, and Nintendo TV. And there are still a good amount of software that fits this definition as well, such as GBA video cartridges and the PSP's UMD video as dedicated video formats, or TV tuners to make watching analog TV on handhelds possible. Sure, probably none of this stuff is important in the modern day, but it's still great to look back on aspects of gaming history that are small even like this. I honestly think it adds extra depth to gaming culture in a way. So yes, my consoles do have Prime Video. The question is, does your microwave have it? Does your computer have Doom? Wait a minute, check fucking mate.